Salvete, discipuli. This video is on exercise 68, the Conquest of Gaul. So we are in the fourth declension, and this is a translation exercise, but it's one where instead of the sentences being numbered, it's all one big paragraph that all has to do with one another. So it's telling one kind of large story. And what I have here is the first three sentences transcribed on paper. We're going to work and do our translation. And so this is just sort of to get you started. So if exercise 68 is ever assigned, the first three sentences will take up this much. So about a third will be done for you if you watch this video. Okay, and so here we go. The Gauls were not friends of Caesar and of the Senate. So we are, as I said, we're in the fourth declension, but we're going to see other words as well. So Gauls, sometimes it's helpful. I know I have you identify subject and verb first. Usually, I'm going to do that this time as well. But a step before that sometimes that is helpful is to, now that we've got four declensions to balance in our heads, is just to kind of think of what the dictionary form for the word is. So Gaul is Gallus. Galli, it's a second declension masculine word, because when you're talking about the Gauls, you're typically talking about males who are Gauls. We have Caesar, which is Caesaris. And then we've got a fourth declension word, which makes sense. Senatus. Doing that wrong. Okay, so we have a fourth declension word, we have a second declension word, and then we have a third declension word. It took up a lot of my room here to do that, but so that's making this a pretty interesting sentence. And also, when we go from English to Latin, it's quite easy to figure out what case a word should be. So let's identify the subject and the verb now. The Gauls were not friends of Caesar and of the Senate. So when we have of Caesar and of the Senate, those are prepositional phrases. We know that of requires the genitive. So here we're going to put Caesar, Caesaris in the genitive singular. And here we're going to put Senate in the genitive singular as well, because it's of just one Senate and of just one Caesar. The Gauls are the subject, so of course they need to be nominative plural. And the Gauls were not friends. What case would friends need to be in? So hopefully you recalled that this were not is like an equal sign, except it's were not, so it's kind of like a non-equal sign, but nonetheless, that makes friends a predicate nominative because the Gauls and friends are the same thing, right? And so we're going to have two things in the nominative in the sentence, okay? So let's start with the Gauls, okay? Gaul would be our stem, but Galli would be the Gauls plural when they are the subject. And so then we're going to save our were not for the end, and that's going to be errant, which we're going to put on the end. The Gauls were not friends, so we're going to say friends now. Oh, and then friends, I forgot to say, it was also a second declension. It's amicus, amicus, amici. So since that's a predicate nominative, we want it to be the same. It doesn't mean that they'll always match, but because they're both second declension, they are going to match this time. So Galli, amici, of Caesar. Now, since we need genitive singular, we're going to use Caesaris, because that means of Caesar. Galli, amici Caesaris, that means Gauls, friends of Caesar, et senatus. We're going to use our genitive singular, which is part of our dictionary form. And then we're going to put our were not. So non erant. And there's our answer. Galli amici Caesaris et senatus non erant. Now let's move to our next one. Therefore, Caesar came into Gaul with the cavalry and the soldiers. So identifying subject and verb, we have Caesar, which needs to be in the nominative singular. He came into Gaul with the cavalry and the soldiers. And so with is going to take the ablative, and so therefore cavalry is going to need to be in the ablative, but he came with the soldiers as well. So soldiers is going to be in the ablative. Ablative plural, ablative singular, because there's one cavalry. And then Gaul. So notice up here, the dictionary form for Gauls was Gallus Galli, because this Gaul is referring to people who are Gauls, right? This Gaul is not referring to people who are Gauls. This Gaul is referring to the place called Gaul, which is Gallia Galliae, right? So Gallia is the place we call France today. And so this is a first declension word now. It's the same stem, Gal, but this was a second declension because it's referring to a person. This is a first declension because it's referring to a land. So definitely keep that in mind. Oftentimes you're going to have readings where you see Gaul, used in different ways. Sometimes it's referring to people and sometimes it's referring to the land, and that makes sense because sometimes, if you're talking about the land, you're going to talk about the people who are in that land as well. And so just because you just translated a sentence where Gaul was Gallus Galli doesn't mean the next time you see Gaul in English, it's going to be Gallus Galli. So take note of whether it's referring to the place Gaul or people Gauls. Okay. So let's begin with our therefore. Therefore is itaque, comma. Caesar came into Gaul. So Caesar, since it's nominative singular, it's just Caesar, came into Gaul with the with the cavalry and with the soldiers. I'm going to do the with the cavalry and with the soldiers, and then save my whole came into Gaul for the end, because came is the verb here in this sentence, and came into Gaul is kind of just part of that verb. So I'm going to save the into Gaul part for just before we put that verb in our sentence. So into Gaul came. I'm going to end the sentence with into Gaul came. So I'm going to skip ahead to with the cavalry. With is cum. Okay. And well, let's see. Don't have my books, so I like to model opening the book and finding the word, because that's what I suspect doesn't happen as much as maybe it should happen. Don't have the book with me, so with the cavalry, what is the dictionary form of cavalry, and what declension does it belong to, so that we know what endings we're working with? So this is a fourth declension word, equitatis, equitatus. So I'm going to put equitat, my stem, and we need to know the ablative. And if you know the declension, you can just sing the song until you get to the ablative, which is the fifth one down. So remember, this is the chant one. Us, us, ui, u. So equitatu with a macron, and with the soldiers. Et cum. Now, what is the dictionary form of soldier? That's miles militis. That's a third declension. So since it needs to be in the ablative, I'm going to put milit, which is the stem. We get the stem from the militis, right, from the genitive singular. So, and then we want to sing that song until we get to the fifth one. Various is ema. So milite. Oh, I'm sorry, this is ablative plural. So we want to sing it till the end. Ace, ibis eis ibis. So militibus. So we have itaque Caesar cum equitatu et cum militibus. So with the one cavalry and with the many soldiers, came into Gaul. So when we say into Gaul, this isn't something that he was doing while in Gaul. This is something he began outside of Gaul and then he ended up in Gaul. So we're going to use in with the accusative. And so we're going to put Gaul in the accusative. What Gaul are we putting in the accusative? We're putting Gallia, Galliae in the accusative. So first declension, right? We want to sing all the way down to the fourth. We want to put in Galliam venit. So our final answer, itaque Caesar cum equitatu et cum militibus in Galliam venit. Into Gaul came. And if he was doing something while already in Gaul, of course we would use the ablative with in, as we first learned to do. But this is one of those times we need to use the accusative with in. All right, here's the last one. The Gauls, however, on account of fear of Caesar, came into the forests and the mountains. So a lot going on here in this sentence. Let's identify subject and verb. The Gauls are the subject. So Gauls, we want to use Gallus, Galli. And the plural of Gallus would be Galli. That's not this Galli, though, right? This is the genitive Galli, but it's the same ending. So Galli autem. Autem means, however, on account of fear of Caesar, came into the mountains. So came is our verb. And then, we have the same thing going on here. We have into the forests and the mountains. So this into is making forests be accusative and mountains also be accusative because he's coming into the mountains as well. All right, this came is accusifying forests and mountains. And so that's already at the end of our sentence, but we would want to kick that to the end of our sentence as well. Came is our verb. We're going to put it at the end of our sentence, but then into the forests and into the mountains is going to be just before that verb, just like we did up here. So we're going to do on account of fear. So on account of is propter. Propter takes the accusative, so whatever fear is in Latin, we want to put that in the accusative, and it's fear of Caesar, so we want this to be in the genitive, and this to be in the accusative. So what is fear? Fear is a fourth declension word, metus. We want it to be in the accusative, so propter metum of Caesar, genitive singular. So Caesar, Caesaris is our dictionary form. We want to memorize the dictionary forms of the words that are in our vocab so that we can get that stem and just know what that stem is, especially for third declension words where the nominative doesn't have the stem. So Caesaris would be the genitive. So Galli autem propter metum Caesaris. The Gauls, however, on account of fear of Caesar, came into the mountains and the forests. So we're going to keep came for the end, but we're going to do into the forests. So we're going to go in, and then we want forests in the accusative plural. What is forest? Forest is way back from the first declension, silva, and you can remember that because Pennsylvania means Penn's woods, Penn's forest. William Penn bought Pennsylvania, and it was all pretty densely forested land, not cleared or developed. And that's an easy way to remember that. So in silv, and we want it to be accusative and plural. So let's sing the first declension song until we get to accusative plural. That's the second to last word. Don't forget your macron. Arum is as. Silvas. In silvas et, because into forests and the mountains, Mons montis is our dictionary form for mountains. Mons montis. So we're going to use montis to get our stem, mont, but we want accusative plural. Various is, ema, ace, ibis ace, so montes. If something's happening already in the mountains, we say in montibus, right? We use the ablative plural instead, but they're coming into the mountains, so they're coming in montes, into the mountains, using the accusative. And then came, venit. All right. I'll give you one good look at the whole set of work here. So that if you want, you can pause the video on it. All right. Valete, discipuli.